Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Common Sense series. We have covered a lot so far on this Common Sense series. We have this one and one more next week. We've talked about strength training and weighted vests and sleep and supplements and posture. And today's episode or topic might be kind of the simplest one, but also the most underestimated because it's something that you're doing right now, and me too. So that is breathing. I actually have to give credit to one of my coaching clients. Shout out to you, Kathy. When I was sharing that I would be doing some of these common sense episodes, she said, "Oh, you know what I would love is some common sense on breathing, and specifically breath as it relates to stress management." We have had a few conversations over the years with a handful of guests, and I will be referencing those episodes in today's conversation, and I will definitely put those in the show notes because I think you're going to want to check them out if some of these kind of pique your interest. But let's talk today about breathing, the benefits of it, and I have 10 different ways that you can try. This is not a 10 steps to breathing. It is 10 things that might invite you into having some intentional meditative type breathing. In this episode, we'll talk about the physiology of what is happening when we employ intentional breathing. I'll share a little bit about what I do, kind of my story with it, if you even want to call it a story. And then I'm going to give you just a menu of 10 different things that you can try if you want. So let's go ahead and jump in. Before we get into these different techniques that you can use, let's just go into a little bit of the science of this. So basically we have two different systems. We have a sympathetic system and a parasympathetic. Sympathetic is more your fight or flight, freeze or fawn, kind of one of those four. It is where your stress hormones come out. That's where you get your adrenaline, or maybe you're just kind of freezing in the moment. And then your parasympathetic is more of your rest and digest. It is a calm. This is where healing and sleep and recovery happen. Both of these are necessary. Okay. I do not want to say like, oh, sympathetic is not good, because we do need it. It is helpful in some ways. So sympathetic is not the villain here. It is just one of our two systems. However, when we have more of our sympathetic nervous system taking over and having more cortisol, then that can get things out of whack. That can cause the dysregulation. And by the way, if you've been with me a while, then this is probably not new to you, but just for whatever it's worth, the way I remember it is parasympathetic starts with P. And at this point in my life, please, can I have more parasympathetic? Please, can I have more healing and sleep and recovery and calm? So that's how I remember it. Again, not to villainize the sympathetic nervous system. It is good and helpful, but that's just how I remember it. But when that does get dysregulated, then we kind of need to balance that out. Intentional breathing is one of the few free and always available tools that we can use. And it is also, breathing is the only autonomic function that we can consciously control. So we can't control our heart rate. We can't control our hormone releasing. We can't control our digestion, but we can control how we breathe. Now, if you're like, but you can control it because you can slow it down, but that's also through breathing. Like, that's part of the intentionality of the breathing. When we utilize that slower, lower nasal breathing, then what that does is it activates our vagus nerve, which I'll describe here in just a second. It triggers the parasympathetic response, which means our cortisol drops, our heart rate slows, our muscles release, and everything just calms down. That vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It runs from your brainstem down through your heart and your lungs and your digestive organs. And it's basically like the main highway of your parasympathetic nervous system. When you stimulate it through that intentional, slower, often diaphragmatic breathing, which we'll talk about here in a second, you are directly triggering your body's rest and digest response and signaling to your brain that you are safe, which allows you to pull things down, if that is the time for you to pull things down. Nasal breathing specifically, so breathing through your nose rather than through your mouth, has some nice benefits. It releases your nitric oxide, it dilates your blood vessels, it lowers your blood pressure, it supports immunity. And Swanson talked about this in the episode called Meditation Myths Busted in season 23, episode 14. And I'll be mentioning her a lot throughout today's episode, so go back and listen to her if you have not. Diaphragmatic breathing, which I just mentioned, is really helpful. And basically, that is when you breathe very intentionally through your diaphragm with long, slow breaths. Your diaphragm is that muscle that's right under your rib cage, and that is what will expand and contract when we breathe. So if you think about a newborn baby, you can look at their belly and it's just out and in and out and in. That's that full expansion because they're utilizing their diaphragm. I don't know about you, but I grew up always wanting to have a thinner waist, and so I walked around sucking in my gut all the time, and I have had to relearn how to carry myself so that I can actually breathe with my belly and less so with my chest. And those chest breaths have very short, quick breaths, and we don't utilize our full lungs and also get some of the benefits that we're talking about here when we have those real quick lung breaths. I mean, we're always breathing through our lungs, but our chest breaths, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. But when we intentionally breathe through that diaphragm, that can help kind of massage the internal organs. It can improve your digestion, and it really will deliver more oxygen to the lower lobes of your lungs rather than just keeping it high with that chest breathing. One of the things with breathing is the exhale is kind of the key, not always, but if you will take a longer exhale than your inhale, that is the strongest signal that you can send to your nervous system that you're safe. So we'll get back to this on the techniques, but I do want to point that out. So if you are like, I can't remember any of these things that Amy said, can you just take your exhale and make it a little bit longer than your inhale? And what that does is it tells your body you are safe. If you have ever done anything with high intensity movement, you're probably like, I don't want to do that too much because that's going to make me lightheaded, but you know what I mean? Like big deep breath in, real quick out. Big deep breath in, real quick out. So that is the opposite of what we're trying to do when we are trying to lower ourselves and take ourselves down. Exhaling slowly, if you remember nothing else today, can be one thing that you can do to pull yourself down. It's funny, about 4 years ago, and I had to go look that up, we had a guest named Hallie Brooke on the show, and she was talking about gut health and the underlying reasons that we are chronically exhausted. And I can't remember if it was within our conversation or if it was she and I talking either before or after, but we were talking about breath and keeping our stress as regulated as possible. And she just kind of mentioned that she had, I think it was an Oura ring that would notify her when she got really stressed during the day. And she said, if I pay attention to that and I will take just a few minutes and do some mindful breathing, then I can directly see a benefit with my sleep that night. She was like, I have the data to prove that I sleep better. I think that was about the time that I was like, well, this is interesting. Maybe I should try this, because you know how protective I am of my sleep. You know that like I make a lot of decisions during the day about if this will help my sleep or not, because if I don't get sleep, it's just, I don't function very well. Like I don't have resilience to not getting very good sleep. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, I'll start looking into this and I'll start thinking about it. What that has turned into for me is very simple. Like some people would probably not even call it real mindful breathing or real meditation, but it works for me. And maybe at some point I'll do more, but for me, this is just what works now. I typically will set a timer for 4 minutes, not 5, not 3. Why? I don't know. 4 just seems more doable. Like 3 seems to end too long, 5 seems to go too long, and so I just do the 4 minutes. There's an app on my watch. If you have an Apple Watch, you have it too. If you have other watches, there's probably one on, or just set a timer. I mean, it doesn't matter. But I will use that, and then I will typically use one of the tactics that I will share here in a little bit. I don't have any kind of special setup. I just sit in my chair. Sometimes I will lie vertically on my Melt Method foam roller. I particularly like this one, and anyone who has ever gotten one, because I've convinced them to get it, totally agrees. This is the best foam roller. I have no affiliation with it, except that I'm an Amazon affiliate, but it's like soft and then firms up. But that's a really great way to kind of extend the spine out. But I really like the way that my spine feels when I lay on that. You have to kind of ooch yourself all the way down to the end. It's kind of like when you go to the gynecologist office, they're like, ooch down, ooch down. You got to go all the way to the end so your head can fit. That's why you got to go all the way in, because you want your head on it. But I will sometimes do my mindful breathing on that. And I really just kind of rotate the techniques. Like, what does my brain need for the day? And I just kind of go where God guides me with that, to be quite honest. Now, I have to fully admit, like, I go in waves with this. My schedule has been bananas this calendar year. I have been traveling a lot. I'm not great about it when I travel. And then when I get home, I kind of forget to have it in my routine. And then I forget, like, even though I knew that I was recording this episode today, did I do it this morning? No. So I do these, but I'm not great at it. And I really notice the difference when I do. Why don't I do it more often? I don't know. So I'm just coming here like full admission that there's a lot of wonderful benefits of it, and I still don't always do it. So don't feel bad if you're not either. This is not a guilt trip, and it's not a guilt trip about consistency. It's just an invitation to try or come back again as many times as you need to. One of the things that I do really try to just put on me is that Psalm 46:10, that it's, be still and know that I am God. It's just a great invitation for me and for you to be still, especially if you do it first thing in the morning or in the evening, or really whenever it is, that God's there and God's got you. And I know that there's a lot of really hard things going on in the world and maybe in your individual world right now. And it's just a nice reminder that God is God, and He's got this, even when it feels like things are a little crazy. Okay, let's talk about this little menu of 10 techniques for mindful breathing. And I'm calling it mindful breathing because meditation to me feels a little intimidating. It feels like it needs to be longer. It feels like I need to sit cross-legged, which is kind of hard on my hips right now. Like, it feels like I'm supposed to be doing a lot of things. And so that feels overwhelming to me. So if you want to call it meditation, go for it. I just like mindful breathing because it feels more accessible to me. And this is not a comprehensive list at all. In fact, if you would like a list of a lot of different options, then I'm going to highly recommend Anne Swanson's book, Meditation for the Real World. This, first of all, it's a gorgeous book. It has lots of pictures and all of this. Again, no affiliation. I just think it's a great book. And she gives you all kinds of different ideas. So if you want a comprehensive list, go check that book out. And I will put the link to that in the show notes. But if you just want to start, if you want to hear like, hey, Amy, what's worked for you? Then these are some of the easily accessible things that have worked for me and that I will use kind of on a rotating basis. I mean, honestly, it's like, what do I feel like I need for the day? And that's what I do. The first one is just breathing through your nose and just being intentional about doing that. In and through the nose, out through the nose, low and slow, very easy. That's kind of like just a baseline place to start. This is also something you can do if you want to have more of a meditative walk. Breathing through that nose, I very quickly will go through my mouth, even though I don't really need to if I'm not breathing that hard. So just noticing the air coming in and out of your nose, and depending on how you breathe, that may be more or less difficult. Number 2 is this belly or diaphragmatic breathing. So that is when you can put your hand on your belly. If you want to, you can put your hand on your chest, but mostly putting your hand on your belly right below your rib cage where your diaphragm is, and let it expand out on the inhale. So not up where you're feeling everything lift up. You're wanting it to be out, which I know goes against what a lot of us grew up with hold your stomach in or something, or maybe that was just me. I don't know, but let your belly come out. We have been holding in our bellies for decades. It is okay to let this go and to let your body do what it was designed to do. Again, think about a baby breathing. Think about your dog breathing. I can sit there, and even though my sweet pit bull princess Stray, who is 11 plus, maybe 11 and a half, is getting kind of old, her belly still will just in and out when she's sleeping. And that's what we're wanting to do when we're going for that diaphragmatic breathing. Number 3 is a real common one that you may have heard of, and that's box breathing. So that is inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold for 4. So if you're watching me on YouTube, you're watching my hand go up for 4, holding for 4, going over, exhale for 4, going down, and holding for 4. So that kind of makes a box. I've actually seen this, I feel like it was on a TV show, and now I can't remember what it was, but they got a coaster, like a square coaster, and just traced their hand around it, up, over, down, over, just to kind of give them that tactile or the visual of breathing like a box. There's actually a lot of science and research behind this one, and it works in almost any situation. I will actually use this. This is kind of weird, but I will do this at night if my husband and I are watching a show that gets really intense, because I'm like, again, protecting the sleep. I'm like, I do not want this show to keep me up at night or stress me out, and then I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I will do this while we're watching a show just to chill myself out a little bit. A little crazy. I don't think he has any idea. He won't, because he doesn't listen to this podcast. But the box breathing, great thing to do anytime, anywhere. The 4th one you can try is like expanding different parts of your body in a different order. I actually utilize this on the foam roller because I got the idea from a YouTube video that they have, and that was really to stimulate that vagus nerve. So if you're like, ooh, if the vagus nerve thing sounds interesting to you, this is a really great one to do on that blue melt foam roller. But you can also just do it sitting or wherever you are. But basically you take one breath and you expand your chest forward and back. And if you're like, but Amy, you just told me not to do that, hang with me, because the next breath, we go down to our rib cage and we expand, inhale, taking your rib cage out, exhale, bringing it back in. And then the next breath, you do your belly, that diaphragmatic breathing that we just talked about. So you expand that belly out and then come back in. And then you put all of those together. So your next breath, your chest is moving out, your rib cage is going out, and your belly is going out, filling your torso like a cylinder, and then pulling it back in. So it's kind of like you're doing one little portion of your lungs, and then that final breath is everything, kind of 3D rather than 2D. This one in particular, and the one that I'm going to share next, work really well for me because it changes my focus of my breath, and it's just enough to keep my brain engaged, because I do have a hard time turning it off, and that's not always necessary. But it's just enough for me to think about what's coming next, but not let all of the other stuff invade my mind. But it's like one thing at a time. So it can get very meditative with that, but I still have something to think about. I hope that makes sense. But there is that one. So that's more of like the expansion, the more of the 3, working toward that 3D. And then the 5th one is clock breathing. I'm going to tell you right now, I made this one up, but it seems to work for me, so I'm going to share it with you. And I hope this makes sense. But basically, I want you to imagine the back of your throat as a clock face. So if the top of your throat is 12 o'clock, then you're going to have the the very back of it, just going directly back, maybe behind your tongue, that's going to be more 3 o'clock. 6 o'clock is going to be at the very bottom. So when you breathe in, imagine that breath hitting up at 12 o'clock and then exhale. And then breathe in and imagine that breath hitting at 1 o'clock and then exhale. And then 2 o'clock, moving it down. It doesn't have to be precise for all of you type A's out there. Like just kind of go for it. 3 o'clock, kind of right behind your tongue and back. And just imagine working your way down. It's very interesting to see not only where you can feel your breath hitting in your throat, but also where it's coming through, like in your nasal passage. I know this sounds really strange, but it's very helpful to me, again, because it keeps my brain from wandering too much and it kind of keeps it on task. The sixth option is putting some words to your breath. I typically will do this with one of two phrases. One is breath of and life. So it's breath of when I inhale, life as I exhale. This is just kind of a nod to Genesis and to God who breathed Adam and all of us into being. The other one I'll do is on the inhale, I'll say God or my God or Jesus or Holy Spirit. I mean, whoever you want to be talking with. And then on the exhale, so that was on the inhale. And on the exhale, it's you are. And you can fill in what you need to. Maybe it is you are love. Maybe it is you are good. Maybe it is you are with me, in control, for me, holy, enough, near. But filling in those blanks with what your heart needs that day. That's always been a really powerful for me to do, especially when I'm just kind of wrestling with something, or maybe I'm spinning out about something. It grounds me and centers me around God and His presence. And I will say this, if this is interesting to you, then I highly recommend the book Breath as Prayer by Jennifer Tucker. So she has a full devotional built around this full concept. So on one page, it'll have a devotional, and on the next page, it will take scripture and it will have guided breathing. The reason I don't have this to show you, because I do own this book, is I have basically just given this to my mom. When my dad passed, we were just really quickly packing up and getting everything together. And I would say, I don't know what compelled me to do this, but it was very clearly God. And I was up in my office. I was grabbing a few things because I knew I was going to be gone for a while. And I just grabbed that book and I threw it in my carry-on. And I pulled it out a few days after he passed because I could tell that my mom needed something to pull her in and to focus on. And I cannot tell you what a meaningful piece that book was to our intense and unexpected grief during that time. And she used that in ways that are so special. I just can't even talk about publicly, but it was really impactful. And so if you are looking for an impactful way to walk you through breathing, then I definitely recommend that book to you. And I'll put that in the show notes. It's Breath as Prayer by Jennifer Tucker. I'm sorry I can't hold it up, but it's with my mom. If you are ever kind of in one of those stressful situations, so I could do this while I'm also watching television, there are a couple techniques that you can use for that. Number one is just a water sip technique. This is actually from Marceline Bailey. In our episode, it was called Exhausted, Overwhelmed at 40. Here's why your body's stress response has changed. That's at season 22, episode 11. And again, all of these will be in the show notes, but Marceline suggested this one. So basically take a sip of water, hold it in your mouth, breathe in through your nose 2 or 3 times, and then swallow your water. So that's it. But what that does is it just slows everything down, and nobody's going to know that you're doing it. So it's another one that you could do if you are just kind of checking in with yourself, or you're noticing and you need to do something. That's a really great one to do. And then the other one, so that was number 7. Number 8 is just feel your breath. And so maybe it is like in those moments, in those stressful moments that you can't do anything, just don't even change your breath. Just notice it. So notice where you feel it. Do you feel it in your nostrils? Do you feel your chest rising and falling? Do you feel your chest maybe contracting, or your stomach starting to feel a little tight, or your belly moving? Just pay attention to your breath. And just that is enough to begin shifting that state. So that's a really simple one to do, where it's accessible anywhere. There's no technique required, but just paying attention. And then we have two more for if you're having a hard time sleeping. Now, I talked about one of these in the Common Sense Sleep episode, so you can go check that out if you want to hear more. But one of them is what Ann Swanson called the down technique. This is in that episode, Meditation Myths Busted, episodes in the show notes. But the whole concept behind that is just pulling yourself down. So settle down, bring the breath down into the belly. And so what she offers us is just thinking down, and then bringing your breath down into your body and your belly. And you start at your head, where you kind of squeeze the muscles in your forehead really tight, and then release. And then you can squeeze the muscles in your lips and your cheeks really tight, and then release. And I'm going through this kind of fast. You can go back and listen to her episode. But I thought that was an interesting way to start thinking down, because we start at our forehead and work our way down to our toes. And the final one is what's called the 4-7-8 breathing. So this one also has had a lot of research behind it. And this is where you inhale for 4, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. This long exhale is actually a really strong vagal nerve activator. So this is research supported, and specifically for helping sleep. Now, I'm going to tell you that I will do this at night, and the first 3 or 4 of them, I feel like I'm exhaling and everything is tight in my chest and even in my face. And I'm trying really hard to exhale for that 8. And then I tell myself, chill out, Amy, and then I'll kind of go down. So it might take you a few times to get into that, to really get into the full benefit of that 8 count exhale, but that's a good one to do. I will also do this when I'm starting to feel a little motion sickness, which I get motion sickness really badly. I have the very best friends in the world, because anytime we go anywhere in the car and we're all together on these friends trips, they just put me in the front. And I'm so grateful for it, because they've also seen me getting really bad motion sickness. But I will do this on planes, and it has helped. So I would not say it's my cure to everything, but it can help. So if the box breathing feels a little too neutral, you can try this one. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 4. And it just kind of helps your body being like, nope, we're done. We are done with being awake, and it's time to go down. I invite you to think about these 10 different techniques and think about which ones might be interesting to try. And then, to help make it stick, remember, you don't need a ton of time. I say 4 minutes. Actually, Ann Swanson was saying just a strategically placed 1-minute break can have a lot of benefits. 1 minute while you're sitting in the car, 1 minute before a stressful meeting, 1 minute before you open your email. Where can you sneak in 1 minute? Another way to help you stick with it is to habit stack it. I'm a big fan of James Clear and Atomic Habits. So maybe it's okay, I'm going to do this before my prayer time or after my prayer time. I'm doing the Bible recap again this year, and so I will do this after my Bible recap. And yes, I know I said that I haven't been doing it as well. So again, just give me some grace here. I'm just being honest. But try saying, okay, I'm going to do this when I do something else. That can be really helpful. Maybe it's before a meal, which actually that conscious breathing and pulling yourself down can help you get into that rest and digest mode and absorb those nutrients even better. We learned that from Elise Muselis back in the food story episode a long time ago. Also will be in the show notes. Kathleen Saucier, who came in and talked with us about CBTI, shared one approach, and that was set an alarm for every hour and just take 3 breaths every hour. Or maybe it's once in the morning and once in the afternoon. I mean, you get to decide your time, right? I'm not going to tell you when it is, but that can be really helpful as well. I'll remind you about that foam roller. So you can utilize any of these techniques on the foam roller, and that's just a great one to open up that chest, to activate that vagus nerve. But you can do any of these breathing exercises on that foam roller if you have it. And maybe we also remind ourselves that this is a wonderful way of connecting with God, of breathing the life that He has given us. And the fact that we are still breathing means that He still has things for us. And so just taking a moment to connect with that. We take over 20,000 breaths every day. Could we make a few of them intentional? Could we take just a few of those breaths and take care of ourselves through doing that? Mindful breathing is free. It's always available, sometimes too available because we think, oh, I'll do it another time. And that's why if we can think about the habit stacking, if we can set the alarms, if we can work it into our day where we have that expectation, then we may be inclined to do it more often and more consistency. And consistency, of course, is so helpful and so beneficial. And of course, every time we do it, it's an invitation to be still and know that God is God. Okay, that's all for today. Go out there and have a great day.